Dover Air Force Base holds a lot of significance to Delmarva as well as the entire nation. And you probably know that the base is also home to the Air Mobility Command Museum.
It showcases the history of military aviation. In fact, it's the only museum dedicated to airlift and air refueling history.
Delmarva Life's Brian Spyros is at the museum this afternoon. And Brian, for those of us who haven't actually been there, you're going to show us a little bit about it.
Well, Jimmy and Lisa, there is certainly a lot to see here at the museum. I'm sitting on the tarmac right now, and all I see are a sea of airplanes. We're going to tell you about some of them, but first I want to introduce you to Mike Leister, who is the director of the museum. First thing, explain what exactly is here at the museum and what it's all about.
Well, we're actually the official airlift and air refueling museum for the U.S. Air Force. So we collect passenger planes, transport planes, refuelers, and we also have a collection of types of airplanes that were stationed at Dover Air Force Base from its beginning.
And you have more than 30 planes here for people to look at. They can go inside some of them. The other thing we should mention too is the staff who is here, many of them who give these tours either have experience working on these planes or around these planes, which just adds to the whole experience.
Correct. Our interpreters actually have a background with these types of aircraft, so when they tell you stories about the way it was to fly or work on these airplanes, it comes from experience.
Which is good for people because they're getting, you know, first-hand experience right there on the tour. Everyone knows Air Force One, the president's plane.
Sure.
There are several different types. Let's talk about the plane behind us. Explain what this is and the story behind it.
Okay, when the president is flying on an Air Force airplane, it becomes Air Force One. When the vice president's flying on the plane, it becomes Air Force Two. This airplane was predominantly used as Air Force Two for all the vice presidents from Nelson Rockefeller up to Dick Cheney. Also, it became Air Force One when President Reagan, Clinton, Bush Sr., and Bush Jr. flew on it. But for the last 5 years of its career, when there were newer airplanes coming online, its basic mission was to take the First Lady around. So the first First Lady to fly in it was Rosalind Carter, and the last was Michelle Obama.
So a lot of famous people have been inside this aircraft, sitting in the big leather chair that we saw in there.
Including the Queen of England.
Wow, good. Many people don't know that. The other thing, too, is you guys actually said that you wanted Vice President Biden to fly in this plane, but it didn't work out. Explain that.
The week they had to deliver it to us, Vice President Biden was on a trip to China, so we didn't get him to bring it in. When he was brought into office, he was flying the newer C-40 aircraft, which is a 757 type airplane, and the First Lady was using it. So we never did get Vice President Biden to fly on the airplane.
But you got a lot of other well-known people who flew on it. How did it end up here? Because the one thing I don't think people realize, like any airliner, so to speak, you have to update the fleet.
Correct. This airplane flew for over 37 years, and when airplanes pressurize and depressurize, it's like blowing up a balloon. You can only do that so many times safely. So as the airplane got a little older, they inspect it more often, and when it's time, they replace it with new equipment. Well, we were very fortunate when it was offered to us. We said, yes, this is absolutely an airplane we want to have at the museum, and it's become quite an attraction.
And real quick, too, people can actually go on board and take a look inside.
On the third Saturday of every month, we guarantee it's open. The rest of the Saturdays and Sundays, when we have additional volunteers here, we open it whenever we can.
So people can get a sneak peek inside and look at all the history that's gone on in there. A lot of good information. All right, Mike, we're going to stay here with you. Stay right here on the tarmac with me. We're going to look at some other planes out here when we come back. But you know, Jimmy and Lisa, I just want to tell you real quick, this airplane has special meaning to me because back in 2002 when I was at flight school, this airplane actually brought then First Lady Laura Bush to my college. We watched it land, watched it take off, and now here I am standing right in front of it, doing a story on it, and that's what I call a full circle moment. So again, we're going to stay here on the tarmac. We'll see you guys a little later in the show.
So here's a question for you. What do you get when you combine a hot day, duct tape, foam, a broomstick, and a canoe?
No, you get a lot of trouble. No, you get the annual Pocomoke River Canoe Joust, of course. Still ahead on Delmarva Life, the history of this yearly event and how you can catch Brian Spyros and myself battling it out.
Delmarva Life, life at its best here on Delmarva.